Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 4th Board of Education meeting. If you could all rise for the pledge. Thank you. James, would you mind taking attendance?
Certainly. President McDonough,
Here.
Vice President Aldred. Here. Secretary Summers here. Treasurer Whitney.
Here.
Trustee Gibson.
Here.
Trustee Atchison.
Here.
Trustee Capajorni.
She will be late. Thank you. Any changes to the agenda? I have none. Scheduled public comment? I don't believe we have any. No. Thank you. All right, next our consent agenda. Somebody would like to make that motion? James, thank you.
Yeah, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support? Mike Aldred, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 5, our superintendent's report with Dr. Milligan.
All right, good evening, everybody. We've had a fantastic day of professional learning for our PD Day. So first and foremost, I want to thank the entire team who provided and structured the professional development today. I was able to attend several sessions, one during lunch, which was de-stressing through cookie decorating, and let me tell you, it was good stuff. As well as, a language, how the use of positive language impacts students, just a lot of really great stuff. So thank you to all of you who not only set it up and structured it, but also participated in it. One of the things that I've shared with my ad team is that as leaders of an instructional or educational institution, it is critical that we model lifelong learning. And so being learning leaders, leading through learning, and modeling that for our students and our staff. So it was really important to do that today. So thank you to all of you. It was a great day. All right, again, grounding us in our strategic plan. We had some great work with our strategic plan at our ad team meeting. Lots of activities to help our ad team as well as our staff get to know our strategic plan inside and out. So our vision, empowering learners, building community, and inspiring futures. Our mission, providing a supportive, safe, and opportunity-rich educational experience that fosters belonging, builds self-empowerment, and prepares learners to contribute to a connected community. And finally, our core values, empowerment, belonging, innovation, and integrity. We also had a chance in ad team today to start brainstorming our portrait of a graduate, our POG. So lots of great mind work, thought work, teamwork around the POG with the hope to finalize that by the end of this school year. So we're actually expediting that compared to what we had initially intended. So tonight's highlights include National School Psychologist Week. I'll provide a millage update, which is today, which is voting day, very exciting. We had our parent university last Saturday. We had school visits for Halloween, that was really fun. And additional school highlights from the school. Some additional updates. Gary will share with us a strategic plan update, goal 4. This is our first update for our brand new strategic plan, so that's going to be really exciting. And Dr. Russell will share with us a safety update. All right, first and foremost, we are celebrating our school psychologists this week. The National Association of School Psychologists, NASP, and schools across the United States will celebrate the 2025 National School Psychology Week. This week celebrates the contributions of school psychologists and the important role they play in schools and communities. This year's theme, Finding Your Path, reflects the ways that school psychologists help students, families, and school communities set and achieve their goals. So thank you to Adam Rainey, Melissa Cree, Farron Scarlett, Allison Gareth, Michelle Showers, Amy Wright, and Scott Nolan. Thank you for all of your hard work. And Miss Beal, thank you for leading the team. Appreciate you. We had several opportunities to share additional information for the millages. So thank you to Mr. Gibbons, who invited me to Bandorama. Our kids are amazingly talented, so I got a chance to hear them play and get a chance to talk to the parents at the performance. So thank you for that opportunity. We had a chance to go to the Oxford Chamber of Commerce Trunk or Treat. That was at Boulder Point, and a great opportunity to network with our businesses and really get a sense of where they stood on the ballot proposals. And then finally, I got to spend my Friday trick or treat. My house is really dangerous. It's right off of Rochester Road, so thank you to Ann and Mike for allowing me to borrow your houses to interact with the kiddos. And as usual, they were absolutely adorable. So fun. So thank you for that opportunity. All right, last Saturday, we had Parent University. Anita Conja-Collins and her team did an outstanding job putting that together for our parents. We had a wonderful presenter that spoke to the anxious generation. It was a great, as you can see in the picture there, a great crowd showed up. They were able to get resources, including the book, Anxious Generation. We had 80 attendees, not including our own employees supporting the event. We want to give a huge shout out to OELC for providing childcare and for OAYA for paying the OELC employees. We provided childcare for 40 children. All attendees received a book, The Anxious Generation, and congratulations to Daniel Axford for winning the $200 Amazon gift card for having the most attendees from their school. Great, great, great event. Here are some pictures of our presenters. I believe Justin gave you guys a handout from the Parent University, so it lists all of the sessions that were provided. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our parents, and my only thought was, golly, I wish I had this information 20 years ago when my kiddos were little, but I'm really happy for our families that they were able to experience and receive, my philosophy, and when you know better, you can do better, so that's great. Okay, brace yourselves. How awesome are we? So the cabinet team, we all dressed up as the decades. So we see 1950s all the way to the 2000s. I bet nobody can guess what I am. Very subtle. But we had a great time. We started off at the high school, and then we headed over to the middle school. Those are our PE teachers at the middle school. They had a competition, best costume for the teachers. The gym teachers won. They were, as you can see, trophies. And apparently they started their day posing for the kids for about 40 minutes. Didn't move for is that right, Christy? 40 minutes. So they were truly dedicated to the cause. So needless to say, they won. I absolutely loved the theme of Lakeville, which was circus. You can see Kristen, our principal, in the middle. She's the ringleader. And, Aaron is the strong man. We have the bearded lady. We have the clown. We have the popcorn giver-outer. So just a really fun theme. Each school had such a fun time, celebratory opportunity for the kids and the teachers. So it was really a great, uplifting day. Oh, wait, Christy, look. Yeah, their theme was at the middle school was Costco. And so they all had Costco costumes. She got to be a Costco hot dog. We were able to go into classrooms and see our teachers. They were just having the best time. And on the right-hand side, DA had a little dance for the kids. And so we went in there. They were playing the song Thriller. Those two little girls were just having the best time just dancing. It was the best. It was so fun. Some school highlights that were sent to me. So this is from Lakeville. Halloween spirit is strong at Lakeville. Staff always goes above and beyond to make sure that the day is filled with fun and excitement for all. Some highlights from our middle school. Each year, our 8th grade students have the opportunity to participate in an essay contest for the chance to represent our school at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier wreath-laying ceremony during our Washington, D.C. trip. This year, Stella Curry, Lily Mahalik, and Emma Novak and Alexa Keat earned this distinguished honor. The wreath-laying ceremony will take place on November 13th at Arlington National Cemetery. So that's our first picture on the left. On the right, our OMS cardiac team partnered with the Oxford Fire Department to practice our cardiac emergency response protocols. The team performed exceptionally well and earned the Michigan Heart Safe Schools Award. So congratulations to our students and staff at OMS. At the high school, we had our football senior walk. They advanced to the playoffs last Friday. From what I understand, it was an amazing game. So congratulations to our coaches and our student athletes for all your hard work. It was an incredible season. Our boys cross country placed 3rd in their region and qualified for states. And Sienna Chapin qualified for girls cross country state finals. I also want to give a shout out to our marching band who won the Brandon competition with many accolades. At Daniel Axford, DK students on the left were investigating pumpkins in science. In the middle, students are using Math Talk to connect models to equations. This supports their understanding of the relationship between addition and subtraction. 2nd grade students and kindergartners shared their personal narrative stories, that's on the right-hand side, with each other during a mini celebration. And then finally, down at the bottom, 2nd grade students designed comfortable spaces for beanie bags as a part of their new science unit, Comfy Spaces. Students learned about materials and prosperities during the unit and used the engineering design process to build their own comfy space as a culminating activity. All right, so those are our school highlights. We have 2 additional updates. We'll start with Dr. Van Staveren, and then we'll finish with Christine Russell. So, Dr. Van Staveren.
How should I stand? Because normally it's like right here. So, I guess this is good. All right. So excited to be here tonight. This is our first time that we are sharing an update. And so there will be 4 updates this year. And this is our first update on our strategic plan. We were talking about this earlier, about how a year ago, where were we a year ago at this time? A year ago, we didn't have a strategic plan. We were just starting the process. So now we have a strategic plan. We have a 5-year roadmap. Now we have a data dashboard, which you're going to see at the very end of this presentation. So think about where we were and where we are now, and this is very, very exciting. So as I said, we're reporting 4 times this year. Tonight is the first reporting, and it's on goal 4. You might be wondering, why goal 4? Why in January? Why goal 3? And the reason why is because this month, this time of the year, we're focusing on facilities. We're focusing on safety. We're focusing on our budget. With our 2 proposals, like this felt like goal 4 felt like the most important to start with. Goal 3 in January is going to be that report, and the reason is because one of the metrics that we're going to be sharing is on the pulse survey, and that pulse survey is given this month, October, November, and so having those results ready for the next presentation in January. March is going to be goal 1, Why Goal 1 in March? Because we're going to do our school quality survey in February, March. If you remember last year, it was a little bit later, so we're going to move that up. And so as a result of moving that up, we're going to have some results to share with you in Goal 1 in March. And then Goal 2 is our teaching and learning outcomes, and that's going to be in June. So we'll finish the year with that. So as we get started, again, today is on Goal 4, and I won't read the vision mission. I know Dr. Milligan just did that, but our vision is empowering learners, building community, and inspiring futures. And today, again, is on innovative, sustainable systems and structures. So when we talk about Goal 4, there's several metrics. We're only reporting on 5 metrics tonight. So those 5 metrics are 4.1. Get my little laser pointer here, okay? 4.1, looking at the physical conditions of all of our facilities. 4.2, focusing on security infrastructure cycle of review and improvement. 4.3 is looking at our average age of devices, our Chromebooks, our desktops, our laptops. One of our metrics is to decrease the age of those devices. 4.4 actually has 2 metrics. One is the centralized resource management, and then our general fund budget stability. So that is what we're reporting on tonight. And why just those 5 metrics? The reason why is because, if you recall, we've also shared, in the past, we shared a timeline. In that timeline, you can see 4.1 there, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4. So when we look at 4.1, that white bar right there, that's year number 1, and that's that first metric. 4.2 and 4.3 and 4.4 has 2 metrics, as you can see here in year 1. That's why we're reporting on those 5. So let's get started. I think it's important as we go through this, as we get started, it's important to remember that when you think about this 5-year plan, that's 60 months. We're 3 months into it. That's 5%. We're 5% of the way. So when I show you some baseline and some current data, you might see some low percentages. And I just want you to know that, again, we're only 5% of the way into this, so we need to remember that. 4.1, physical conditions. So what we did here, our metric is to look at the percentage of schools meeting district-defined criteria on the physical conditions of all of our facilities. Right now, our baseline and current are the same because, again, we're just getting started. And our target for this year at the end of the year, so that we're looking at going into end of June, would be 65%. And what does that mean? How did we get to that? So when we look at this number here, this baseline and current, we did interior and exterior facilities assessment. Plant Moran conducted an assessment. We had Royal Roofing conduct roofing assessments. Our own director of facilities conducted on-site review. We also overlaid it with our 10-year sinking fund. That's also on the website, and looking at that as well. So looking at all of those, these categories, again, are on that 10-year plan that's on the website. These categories, extended useful life, what is that talking about? That's our roofs, our boilers, our air handlers, lighting. We looked at safety and security cameras, PA, alarm systems. We looked at building and site renovation, those categories. Technology infrastructure and operational efficiency, like do we have emergency generators? So we looked at these categories and subcategories, and our percent of subcategories fell into that 53%, meaning that they were a level A or a B, category A or B, meaning that we want our facilities to meet a level A or a level B, meaning that we have 7 to 10 years or more of useful life. So that's our standard, that's the bar we've set, is that we want all of our facilities at these categories and subcategories to meet an A or a B. And currently, when we look at all of that, we're at 53%. And by the end of this year, we'd like that to be at 65%. And then obviously that's going to go up the year after and the year after. So any questions on 4.1?
I guess more so how the metrics were measured. Because I'm looking at the breakdown, and so we see, like, obviously plumbing, interior doors are two pretty high ones, it looks like, across the board for the most part. And general site improvement, like, what kind of do you have, what those were graded against? Obviously different for a category, but I'm just curious.
Yep, so again, our own director conducted on-site review, but then Royal Roofing graded our roofs, and that's just our roofs, but then Plant Moran also did a study. Plant Moran did a facility study of all of our buildings, and that broke it down by all those categories as well, giving them useful life expectancy, and so that is where a lot of the data came from as well. Does that help?
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, what useful life it expects from, like, an interior door. If it's a C, is it really not going to last more than 4 years? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so they have life expectancy, so John could probably explain it better, but for example, a door might be 40 years. Roof.
Sure.
Yeah, here's John.
So this first piece up here in the ABC boxes with the future, long-term, near-term, that's really a snapshot picture of a long-term asset. So in that category, so think of the extended useful life category: roofing, boilers, long-term assets, facilities. That yellow block above would apply to that category from a time frame measurement. So there's a similar type setup breakout for each asset class. So you think of like a security camera under safety and security. Those do not last 15 years. They have a different useful life time frame. So there's a version of an ABCD, the ABCDF for that category. So that's behind the scenes. And the important thing to keep in mind here too, this actual website is basically a living document. And as we work through the metrics and where the data we can pull and what makes more clarifying sense, like to answer your questions in that regard, that will be blended in, and as we make changes, you'll pick them up in the updates. So does that make any sense more in terms of how the data is being, this is an example of the long-term piece. That little snapshot up there.
That I understand. Obviously, like a HVAC unit, a boiler, I kind of see that more than just, I guess, general plumbing or interior door. I'm trying to understand what the metric is. But you're saying, so there's something like that for each of those categories.
Yeah, so that's the process that's in place, and it's being built on as well for those asset categories. So the interior door is kind of a tweener, but something that's clear or cut and dried, like a roof, falls under the useful life long-term category. Something like, what's a good example? Tech devices are going to be in a much shorter category. So A there is going to be a future piece if it's got, depending upon the piece of technology, 5 years left on its useful life, or 7, for example. So the concept is the same for each subcategory, but it's not specific to those timeframes for each category, because there's different lives to the categories. So at this point,
all right, I see the different lives.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess.
So this was probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, probably
Like
one of the challenging ones to put in a quantifying metric to measure what the specific groupings are. Short of identifying, 75 different categories, we're working towards a summarized grouping of categories along the concept of long-term, near or medium-term, short-term, maybe a couple in the middle from a measuring point of view. So it's to develop a metric for useful life.
Yes, similar, like the devices, for instance. You mentioned the devices. It says 4 years, which I understand, 4 to 5 years. Are we saying the majority of the devices across all buildings are?
That one's coming out.
Okay.
Better slide into this week. It's coming up.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions on 4.1? Shane?
Yeah, sorry if I missed this, but I'm just trying to figure out what is 65%, that target? What does that look like?
So right now, again, 53% was derived from all of the buildings and all of the categories and subcategories. So there's probably over 100. Getting that number, that average number of all of the buildings and all of the categories, getting that average to 65%. So that might be a new roof, that might be a new boiler somewhere. That's going to raise that particular subcategory for that building to an A, which will then, I did a whole count if, formula, so that's going to raise that percent. We want to get that average of our facilities across the district to 65% by the end of the year.
Is it then, again, pardon my ignorance, but is it then the bigger the ticket item, the more weight it carries?
Nope.
No?
No, that's a good question. So each one is going to, be graded. So A, B, C, D, and so on.
I'm doing the color commentating on the piece tonight. So when you see the salmon colored box, the A2 ref ranking, because this speaks to long-term categories, future has a 10-plus year life left on that category or on that specific asset group. So this same concept, whether it's critical, whether it needs to be replaced now, or it's got a future life of an extended time out before it needs to be addressed, applies to each subcategory, but the years associated are going to change. So from a subgrouping, to speak to what Gary's talking about, they're going to have the same weighting metric. Where ideal world, we want to be in the AB class for everything. Whether it's 3 years, we want 3 years on our average outstanding device. I'm not guessing, putting a bad number on that map. Or, what was really great, I think a B, if I remember the slide coming up. Or whether it's a roof. So that means it has a different value from the time frame.
Okay,
Again,
thank you.
It gets back to the challenge of how to actually quantify presentably the wide array of different assets.
Right, yeah, I mean, I totally get, it's hard to quantify qualifiable data, I get that, but
And this is a work in progress right now. In terms of as we determine better ways to measure, quantify, put up, the back guts of this measurement will get updated.
okay.
So you have essentially all of the needs prioritized into what would be best for safety first. We're looking at the list of the criteria, and obviously the PAC stage floor is on here, and that is important, but is a leaking roof prioritized above that is to get us to the 65? Do you have it outlined in that manner?
In the actual 10-year plan that's on the website, that's where most of those pieces are first wave being addressed. Assuming certain things occur, there'll be some time shifts if otherwise, but from a measurement piece of the health and safety piece, if it's the high school roof and it's a leak in a manageable area that can be handled on a patchwork basis versus the stage floor, where kids can literally catch the foot wrong and damage themselves, break an ankle, whatever it may be, we'll be dealing probably with the stage first, assuming it's a zero-sum game of the money involved.
Okay.
Ideally, we're going to get both in.
Sure. And for the categories on here that don't have a rating, is that just because the facilities overview has not been completed?
So some didn't have a rating. That's because maybe Plant Moran didn't have that because that was an overlay of our 10-year plan. So that spreadsheet I think that you're looking at is taking into account our 10-year plan and Royal Roofing and Plant Moran. And so there may be things that maybe Plant Moran didn't see that we saw, and that's part of our 10-year plan. So that's why you're going to see some of those categories might be missing a description.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just a little bit about the Plant Moran piece. They were part of the group that did a statewide analysis on all the school buildings in the state, so that's where the underlying data comes from. That was published, I want to say, last January.
Real quick, you said that was statewide. Is that state funded or did we have to pay for that?
The station.
Okay, just making sure.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right, 4.2, moving to our next one, 4.2. I want to preface this, because again, you're going to see some numbers that might be low. I want to preface this with, you've seen this before. These are all of the things that we are doing from a physical safety standpoint, from a virtual social emotional standpoint, from a safety management standpoint. These are all the things we're doing. 4.2, that metric is about a cycle of review, a cycle of improvement and enhancement. So I just want to preface this with that. So when we look here, this metric is looking at key performance indicators, KPIs, and we have the definition of what a KPI is. It's really looking at these check boxes, okay? We're going to get this done, this done, this done, this done, etc. And so these KPIs met per the security infrastructure cycle of review and enhancement. So our baseline and current are 15%, and our target at the end of the year is 30%. And I know that might seem very low, but we have to remember again that we just got started. And how do we get to that number? How do we get to 15%? So this is based on these KPIs, and there are 22 of those KPIs each of the next 3 years. So this year, the next year, and then the third year. 22 KPIs each year, 66 total. We've accomplished so far 10 of those in our first 3 months. That's where you get the 15%. And so at the end of the first year, at the end of this school year, we want to have 30% of those KPIs. At the end of the next year, 60%. At the end of the third year, 90% of those KPIs. When I say KPIs, what am I talking about? These are those KPIs. We're looking at reviewing, revising safety and security, our philosophy, our expectations, an annual review of that. We're looking at safety and security documentation, our trainings, train the trainer. How can we increase that model? Our vendor contracts, vulnerability assessments, our continuous improvement, looking at monthly check-ins with our building administrators, with Fortis. So those are all different things those are those KPIs that we're looking at. And again, we've evaluated 10 of those thus far in this year. So any questions on 4.2? Okay. And 4.3, so John already alluded to this a little bit. This is about our devices, average age of devices. And our metric for this one is we want to decrease the average age of devices for staff and students across the district. So we're looking at student Chromebooks, teacher desktops, staff desktops, and then staff laptops or tablets. And so our baseline, we broke it up into each one. So our baseline or our current is the same again. And our Chromebook, our average age of Chromebooks right now is 4.1 years. And we've got thousands of those Chromebooks. Our average desktop is 8.7 years. And I think up until recently, some of them were as old as 13 years. And so that is something that we are vigorously working on improving. And then our laptops, our average age of those in our fleet is 3.1 years. And so our target for the end of the year is Chromebooks 3.5 years, desktops 6 years, and laptops 4 years. So we really want to work on our staff desktops. So again, how did we get to those numbers? Here are our averages, OCS average for each of those categories. And here also is the industry life expectancy. So that's important to know. Underneath that, you're going to see this sawtooth graphic here. And I share the sawtooth graphic because it's important to understand that the average age, decreasing the average age of devices is not linear. It's not just going to go down each year, down each year. The age is going to increase, and then we're going to buy some. And then the age is going to increase for some that we haven't purchased, then we're going to buy a few more. So that's why you see this. This is not exactly what we're doing in Oxford. This is just an example to give you a visual of that purchase cycle of review and purchasing. So our target again for the end of the year here, we really want to focus on getting our desktops down to about 6 years for our fleet as the average of those devices. And it is important to note that you have already approved this, I think it was over the summer, for this fall, purchased 1,350 Chromebooks and 126 desktops. So there is, one of those dips in that sawtooth, okay, as we go over time. Any questions on 4.3? Okay.
Gary, I do.
Yes.
So you mentioned, and I was curious about that. So this sawtooth graph is just an example.
Just an example.
And do we have, and the numbers that we have up there right now for OCS don't include the purchase?
It does.
It does include the
It does.
purchase. So I guess I'd be
Yep.
curious of what that looked like just from this purchase
So maybe before?
before and after
Okay.
the purchase, and just kind of getting a feel for what
Yeah,
that does for the district as far as the average is concerned.
that's a good question, and I will get that information to you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess maybe just to piggyback off of that, because I thought he was about to ask my question for me, but he just held up short. I was going to ask what prevented us from having a graph that depicted actual numbers from Oxford on there.
I'm not sure that anything prevented us. I think I can work on generating that as we go forward. I can work with Mr. Santala on that. But in all honesty, nothing prevented us from doing that.
And Gary, let me interject. So I just want to remind everybody that the strategic plan did not go into effect until the school year started. So the baseline represents the beginning of the school year. We purchased those devices in the summer, so that would contribute to the baseline. So I just want to continue to reiterate, I know we were very high achievers. We're 3 months in, we're babies on this journey, and so anything that happened previously is not necessarily incorporated into the data we're seeing here. But that is something we have access to and can provide that.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that would be helpful to just get a feel financially too of what that would cost yearly to meet our goal, our target for each year. So if you don't mind, thank
I can
you.
definitely work with Mr. Santala on that. Yes.
Excellent, appreciate it.
So Gary, just for a second,
Yes,
I apologize. The 10-year plan, though, that's on our website, speaks to the amount of money that's earmarked for technology. So that would give an indication of the money set aside. Now, part of that has to do with the outcome of the millage proposals, but that would give some indication of that. Mm-hmm.
And our last two are in 4.4. 4.4 has two different metrics that we're looking at. One metric is to increase the percentage of schools and departments, basically our district, utilizing centralized resource management systems. And the second metric is to decrease dependence on our general fund for our physical plant work. And so when we look at these two, again, you're going to see some low numbers here because we just got started. And so I will explain what this one is and this one as well. But what I want to point out right now is that, as you can see here for the first metric, the top one, our target is higher than what our current is because we want to increase that. But you're going to see the inverse on the second one. We want to decrease our dependence on our general fund. So how did we get to these two numbers? For the top one, our centralized resource management, what that means is we're looking at our printing supplies, we're looking at custodial supplies, we're looking at a variety of things. And are there redundancies? Are we paying for, let's say, for example, electronic signing platforms, software? So let's say Adobe Sign, HelloSign, DocuSign. We're paying for all three of those. Why are we paying for three? So is there a reason for that? So we're analyzing, we're auditing, and we're looking at a variety of these to see where we can have some cost savings, make things more efficient, centralize our resources. And so right now, when we look at all of these, there's more than that, but we're looking at about 17%, and our target by the end of this year is 20%. Target by the next year will be 40% and growing that, okay? Our second one is looking at our general fund and looking at increasing new resources to decrease dependence on the general fund for our physical plant work. So right now, when we pay for a roof, when we pay for a boiler, it's coming right out of general fund. So what are some other things that we can do? For example, today's vote, all right, sinking fund, operating millage, fee revenue growth, so that we can, again, decrease that dependence on our general fund. Any questions on either of these?
For the centralized resource management, printing solutions is on there. Do these metrics include the recent purchase? As I understand it, that saved a lot of money and has been very beneficial in optimizing efficiency. So does that already, is that included in the 17 or?
I don't think that's included in this one.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
but that is a good question. I don't think it's included.
thank you.
Yep. Because we're looking at, like, that's looking at RICO, it's looking at Konica Minolta, RICO, Applied Imaging. So it's looking at those, and do we go with one vendor? Do we not? That's what that's looking at.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Thanks.
All right, so all of that, now let's get into the data dashboard. And remember to vote if you have not. So our data dashboard, just so everybody knows, is public now. It is on our website. And so if you go to Oxford Community Schools and go to About Our District in the lower left corner and scroll down to Strategic Plan. So everybody can access this now. And let's scroll down to the bottom. There's all of our information on our strategic plan, our goals, progress monitoring. And over here on the lower right corner is data dashboard. So again, you're going to see on our data dashboard, we have our 4 goals, goal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Underneath that, it's looking at these metrics. And again, we're 5% of the way into our strategic plan, so you can see that we have not met any metrics yet because we just got started. And it's important to also know that there are more metrics than what is up there. What we're showing right now is year 1. So what are we doing in our timeline? What are we sharing over the course of 25-26? And that's what's going to be up here publicly displayed. Tonight's presentation is taking a look at goal 4. And so when we look at our data dashboard, a couple things to note is that in the top right corner over here, you can click on key resources. And so again, I think I described this before, those resources are there so that you don't have to go back to the website and then go find a strategic plan or go back to the website and find the timeline. It's right there as a resource in the dashboard. And then, again, our goals are across the top. Underneath that is our aligned action. So 4.1, aligned action, 4.2. And as we scroll down, I apologize, this cursor is not like my computer, so it's a little bit cumbersome. As we scroll down, you're going to see 4.3 and 4.4. And this is everything that I presented on tonight. If we just hone in on 4.1, when you click on it, it will populate And then you're going to see our current, our baseline, and our target, which is 65% by the end of the year. If you hover your cursor over this I, the letter I, it's going to populate the exact verbiage of that metric. So it's not just the abbreviated version. And then as you put your cursor down here over the line graph and the bar graph, you will see our data. So current data, Q1, and then you will also see when you go to 27, 28, 29, you're going to see how we want to grow that. And for time's sake, I won't go into each of them, but that is our data dashboard, and that is, again, it's public, it's on our website. So any questions on data dashboard?
Shane?
This may be a rudimentary question, but how often is that updated?
I'm actually updating it pretty frequently right now. So I plan to continue to update that throughout the course of the year.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, how often is frequent?
I would say, I mean, right now it's been almost daily, if not weekly. I would see that probably slowing down a little bit, but maybe monthly.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
And to conclude, I
Gary,
appreciate-
real
Yes.
quick. So when we went public with the dashboard, did we change the website slightly? The website name, the URL? Do you know?
Did we change the URL
Yeah.
for the dashboard?
Yeah.
I think it did change. I
Okay.
think the company
Okay.
changed it, yeah.
So I'm just the old one. Can we just make sure that gets blown away? Because I had bookmarked.
Bookmarked it,
Yeah, and I know that we had
Yeah.
it's before it was public, right? But I'd bookmarked it, so I just and it's still active. It's just not updated, right?
Correct.
So I'm just making sure. Can we just make sure it gets away so it doesn't come back some other time
Yeah,
with somebody
yeah.
else?
I would just use the one that's on the
Of course,
website now.
yeah.
Yep. And in the top right corner, you can go to sign in as well if you wanted to on the one that's on the website. Okay?
Okay.
All right, that was a lot of information.
sure we
Thank
blow
you
it
very, very much. Are there any other questions? And again, this is very exciting. We have a data dashboard. We have a 5-year plan. And I will see you again presenting on Goal 3 in January.
Thank you. You actually just took what I was going to say. Going from 3 months to now with a fully functioning data dashboard is truly impressive. So I know it wasn't just you. So thank you to the whole team. And this is fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I know that our community will as well. So excellent work. I know you've been busy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. All right, Dr. Russell.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm here to talk about a few pieces on our safety measures one pager that we have up on the website. Allison's been doing most of the updates, but I'm here as the director of MTSS for the district, and MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. So the work we do to support kids, what we do for all kids, what we do for some kids who need a bit more, and what we do for kids who need even more intensive supports. When we think about our safety measures, it's not just about the physical piece of our buildings, but it's also about what we're doing to support students, that preventative work to help make sure our kids feel safe within the building, and also to make sure that their own social emotional health is at a good level for our building. So I'm in the middle part of the graphic that you see up on the screen. Allison's already talked through the left side, through quite a bit that's in the middle. I'm starting partway down, and I'm here to talk today about our SAVERS assessment, our early warning system, our trusted adults, and our social emotional curriculum and bully prevention work. I'm honored to get to talk about it. It's like everybody else that's sitting in this room, and our teachers and our FSLs and our social workers that do this work every day. So I'm going to start with what our SAVERS assessment is, and all of these things I'm going to talk about, I'm giving just kind of high-level overview so that everyone here in our community understands a little bit more about what's within this graphic. You can click on these pieces, get more information. I'm always available to answer additional questions as they come up as well. So SAVERS stands for Social, Academic, Emotional, and Behavioral Rating Scale. So what this assessment is it's used to evaluate behavioral, social, and emotional readiness for school. It's done 3 times a year with our kindergarten to 5th grade students, and it's done 2 times a year at, DK to 8th grade students, and it's done 2 times a year at the high school. We're piloting this at Crossroads as well. Bridges uses also a social emotional measure, but a different one called Fundamentals that they find that works a little bit better for their students and digs a little bit deeper. So we're doing this type of work in all of our settings and with all of our kids. What we're doing is we screen kids to see how are they doing, how many of our kids are just saying that we're doing great, everything seems fine. Are there any kids that are saying, like, I'm struggling a little bit with how I'm doing socially with peers, I'm struggling a little bit with my emotional functioning, or I'm struggling a little bit with my school behaviors? And then as a school, we analyze those results, we take action, and we continue to monitor our kids. So at the elementary level, once those assessments are completed, we have a team of people that sit down with every teacher to talk about how things are going, think about what needs to happen within that classroom, or what might need to happen for individual kids. The team that sits down includes our FSL, our Family School Liaison, our social worker, and then that teacher. In some of our buildings, our behavioral para has been joining as well because they do a lot of check-ins with kids, a lot of help to make sure our kids are doing well throughout the day, so they attend as well. At our middle and high school level, it's our student relation teams that are looking at this data, which include counselors and administrators and our Family School Liaison there as well. At all levels, teachers are involved in looking at this data, thinking about what they can do to support students. We're also often celebrating the strong results that we have. Historically, in our district, we've seen stronger and stronger results of more and more kids saying they're feeling really ready for the academic pieces that are happening in school. And when I've shared the data with you in the past, one piece that we've seen as a very strong highlight for Oxford is that in the social category, our kids across the board at all of our buildings year after year are saying that they're socially connected with peers and with adults in our building. So we use this data to then do some interventions if needed. We can put kids into some additional supports that may help them with a social need, like a small group. If there's some emotional needs, we might do some one-on-one check-ins with them, with a FSL or with a counselor. And we also can use this data just to look at what do we need to do across our entire building. Is there some additional teaching that needs to happen about how do we pay attention better in class, or how do we organize ourselves? The data can help us with all of those different pieces. Do you have any questions about SAVERS that I can answer at this time before I move on to the early warning system?
What's the typical timeline between the students taking the test and intervention if needed?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it varies based on the building. Our students, what's great is we can see their historical data as well. So when we have a student that maybe towards the end of 3rd grade was needing some intervention, we're keeping that going right away at the beginning of 4th grade too. So even when you think about the data that we collect in 1 year, it's still impacting how we're supporting a student the next year. When we take those assessments, we're typically looking at them around 2 to 3 weeks after we have our window. Some of that is because we have a buffer time period to like do any makeups, kids that have been absent, just to check in and make sure we have all of the information before we get going. Also, before we start some of those conversations with teachers, often our principal and our FSL are working together just to kind of get a game plan before they start moving forward. So about 2 to 3 weeks. Quicker if someone feels like there needs to be something quicker.
Okay, and that's through DK through 12 consistently.
Yeah.
And so we're not in a situation where it's the end of the year and then it's not looked at until
Oh
the
no,
fall.
for
Great.
any social emotional assessment that we're doing, before we even start to collect that data, we want to have our timeline already set and what actions we're going to take immediately. And that is definitely what's happening within this district. In every single setting, elementary, middle, and high school, there's written documentation of like what are some of the actions that we take next and what is the time frame for that. Now it might be for an individual student, we go off course and we're like, okay, we have this data, here's what we typically do. We want to do something more for that student. That can happen. But we have our kind of like typical next steps that we do that we're ready for kids.
Excellent. Thank you.
Next thing I want to talk about is the early warning system. This is something where we are pulling data together all the way down from our developmental kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. We're using data that we already have to pull together to have a whole child look at for our students. So every type of data that we pull together, we do interact with on its own. But at this time point, when we pull our early warning systems together, we look at it as a combined look at how much risk do we have for a student to really struggle in school in the future. So some of the things that are involved in the early warning system are things like grades, attendance. We do pull our SABRS assessment into the early warning system as well. We look at things like our STAR assessment, so how are our kids doing on their screeners for math and reading. We pull all of that together in one space and we get an idea of how many risk factors does a student have. So if they have low grades in courses, that's a risk factor for struggling across time in school. If they have a low screener assessment on math STAR, that's a risk factor for struggling in school. For our kids that have 1 or 2 risk factors, we definitely want to intervene and we want to support those kids. For our kids that have 5 or 6 risk factors, we need to do even more. And for our kids that have a lot of risk factors, we need to swoop in right away and make sure that the supports they need are already in place. That's one thing that we find most often is as we look at our early warning system data, immediately our counselors, our FSLs, our principals, they're looking at the kids that have the toughest needs, and we are quickly documenting like what's already in place, what's already in place. If there's anybody that doesn't have something in place, then those are the kids we're starting with right away. And then the next step is to analyze, are those supports that are in place for these kids that are struggling working for those students? So we're looking at our early warning system, we're putting that together in that preventative viewpoint of what can we do now to make sure that we stop the struggles that these students are having. We're using that to come up with next steps and interventions for students that may need it, and we're using this to track kids across time, because for any individual student that's struggling, the supports we're putting in place, we should see their risk factors decrease across time. Any questions about the early warning system? Okay. Another piece that we use that is really in that social emotional realm, but also helps with our feeling of safety within the building is our trusted adult surveys. This is something that started at the high school and it has grown. Middle school does this as well, and even some of our elementaries have done some trusted adult work with their students. What the schools are doing is at certain points of time, and normally it's collected around the same time as our SABRS assessment is, students are asked, they're talked to in an advisory class about what is a trusted adult, what does that mean to have someone that you can go to and ask questions to or share things that are going on that are tough for you. And then after that kind of discussion around what is a trusted adult, they go on to a survey and identify trusted adults. On those trusted adults list, for example, at the high school, it's not just teachers that are listed, it's counselors, but it's also food staff, it's transportation department, it's the janitors from within the building, it's coaches. And our goal as we do that is that everyone in the building can name at least 2 people that are a trusted adult. After we gather all that data, there are interventions put in place for kids that aren't able to identify 2 people that they trust to go to. But also we give all of our staff the information about who saw them as a trusted adult, so that they know who's really connecting with them, who they're making a difference with, so they can continue to cultivate those relationships. Like, who's relying on me is good for me to know as a staff member also. And then our staff is made aware as much as possible any kids that maybe don't have a trusted adult, so that they can support that, but also our counselors and our office, like front office team takes that on as well to make sure that those kids are getting what they need. It's additional data that I see collected here at Oxford that's not something that I see regularly in other districts. It's really one of those things that makes Oxford really special. What I was reflecting on when I was at the parent fair this weekend is I was in a session that was about ACEs, which is about like tough trauma that kids might go through, but the session was focused on protective factors for children, protective childhood experiences, and one of the major protective childhood experiences having 2 adults that you can go to that aren't your parents. And so already in this district, we're checking in regularly every single year, do all of our kids have that and experience that? There are times where we have kids that don't identify kids at school, but when we meet with them, they're able to identify people within their church or other parts of their community, and that's wonderful. And so we were able to put on the list that that might not have been someone that's listed on our list, but they do have people to go to. And then as we meet with kids, we may find students that are not identifying anyone, and we're going to work through that with them. It's our Trusted Adult Survey. The last piece here that I'm going to kind of push together is our SEL. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick.
Sorry, I kind of have a two-part question. What would be an example of a direct intervention for someone who cannot name two adults?
Yeah, so first of all, just that check-in with your counselor or your family school liaison might be something that gets put in place. Not even only that first check-in, but regular check-ins. The other thing that we've done at the middle school in the past is staff have kind of like under the radar adopted a student who wasn't identifying students, not coming up to them and saying, hey, you didn't identify someone, I'm going to be your friend, but rather under the radar taking a further interest in a student. So every staff member taking a couple of kids that didn't have a trusted adult saying, I'm going to work real hard to build a relationship with a student. I'm going to crack this code and they're going to put my name the next time we have a trusted adult survey.
Excellent. I guess the second part to that is I do know that we have turnover, we have movement. Do we circle back when somebody gets moved from one building to another or somebody moves on to a different district and that person was somebody's trusted adult?
So like if our staff member is
Yep.
no longer there?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice is we're taking these assessments a couple times a year. So it does help us kind of do that check-in a few times a year if maybe someone isn't there anymore and now a student is saying like, I don't really have anybody in this building that would get identified. Thank you. In our buildings, we also have social emotional curriculum at all levels, DK up to 12th grade. At our elementary levels, we're using Second Step, and at our middle and high school, we're using Trails. These social emotional curriculum have been developed based on CASEL competencies, which are things like risk, self-management, decision-making, things like that, that help our students to be the best that they can be within our building and within their relationships. These curriculum are organized and put out for kids through at the middle and high school, their advisory teachers, and at the elementary level, our FSL and the teacher in the classroom pair together and lead this for our students. Within these curriculum, not only are they dealing with some of the major competencies, but they also are dealing with lessons around bully prevention as well. So these are things that at the middle and high school, they're getting regular lessons within their advisory time. At the elementary level, it's once every other week with their FSL and teacher together. On the off weeks, the teachers are still doing some follow-up lessons through a circle or through other work. They still have that block of time set aside for social emotional, and they're doing what they feel like their classroom might need in those off weeks when the FSL isn't there doing the curriculum lesson. So all of these pieces here are more on that social emotional end, more of that like heart of our kids, heart of the whole child, but it's an important part of helping to keep our schools safe and helping to keep our kids feeling safe here as well.
What type of metrics do you look at to determine the success of these programs? Obviously, we can all, I think, in our minds see the intrinsic value, and but I'm just curious what you look at to decide whether to tweak a program or add support here, or obviously, I would assume less bullying reports, better attendance, behavior, those kind of things. But could you just give a few more that you look at when determining the success?
Sure, you're naming off quite a few that are important. Like if kids feel safe, they're more likely to attend school. The other things we can look at is how our SAVERS assessments are doing, since it's measuring how kids and staff see students' social, emotional, and behavioral functioning. That helps to know if that's going up, then our curriculum is doing what it needs. We're also, of course, many of our buildings have our school climate surveys as well. And it's another way to look at, like, am I feeling safe? Do I feel like I know how to interact with peers? School climate surveys help with that as well. The last thing I would say is we're constantly checking in with our family school liaisons, with our teachers that are delivering this work to get their feedback too. That really is important. Yes, I want metrics to know, are we moving the dial for our kids and having healthier students? But I also want to hear from the teachers that are delivering that content, or the FSLs that are delivering it. What's working, what's not, what are we missing? So for example, the FSLs at the elementary identified that one thing we were missing was a lesson around disability awareness, especially invisible disabilities. And so every year during May, I believe April or May, one of the weeks they're not doing Second Step, but they're doing that lesson because they felt like it was really important for our kids to understand how to socially interact with someone who might think differently than you do, and how to support students within our building that might have a disability. So those are some things we're constantly doing to make improvements to the work that's happening, and that comes from the people that are doing the work more than even just the data.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Shane?
I just wondered if you had the data handy of how many bullying cases have been opened in the district thus far this year?
I do not have that data handy. My goal today was to just talk about like what the purpose of these pieces are and how they relate to safety, but I'm happy to come back and talk about even some of the SAVERS results, the early warning system results, and definitely some of the bully prevention reporting results too. Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Russell, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, team. That concludes the superintendent update.
All right. Moving into item 6, our Board of Education matters. We had one committee meet, the Finance Committee. Mike, would you mind giving us an update on that?
So we got briefed over the state budget. Of course, that was one of the big topics of the day, and there's still some items that are still not clear coming out of the state how it's being categorized. The 31A and 31AA are big ones. Safety standpoint with the 31AA and how that's going to really fall out, the requirements, I guess, how that's listed, and let me see. Fund balance was mentioned, having the 17 million fund balance, and we talked about for instance, in a two payroll month, that's approximately 12 million alone. So that's kind of that understanding that 17 million, and that it's a rolling 17 million, and it's not necessarily just, certainly not excess, right? And I know we just got done coming out of uncertainty of a state budget, still some uncertainty, but coming out of it, and I think if, relatively speaking, when you look at just from a payroll / benefits standpoint, we're talking about pretty much that. And so it would, in my opinion, but as we discussed, just being fiscally responsible, that's really kind of where we're at with that number. Let me see. Oh, debt structure. So we had done the refunding of the bond debt, and this past meeting that saves over $200,000 over the life of that bond. So we talked about that, and then targeting to pay off the debt revolving fund within the next few years, which is big. Trying to consolidate some of that and pay it off. That was mentioned. Insurance. So we have the insurance discussion. Currently, there's the four state pools. The three pools, which are MySet, Maisel, and Middle Cities, they're all looking at it. The private insurance right now hasn't come back. We're looking for that in writing. I don't think we haven't got anything in writing yet, have we, John? For private insurance?
Not yet.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. But so that's really kind of where we're standing with that. We have asked for it though, and we expect to get feedback from those that will be coming with a proposals, I guess, still this year. So we did talk about that as well, as far as making that decision with the current meeting schedule coming into the holidays and whatnot. We'll have to see when. We'll know more when they come in. They should Do we have any update, sorry, John, on as far as timeline? Any update on the timeline as far as the quotes coming in?
For the insurance piece?
Yeah.
As we were talking, we're looking at setting up 1117, the finance, I think we were talking about doing a finance subcommittee of the whole, if I remember right. The people we're working with is coming in, we'll be talking with them, going over the state of where everything is, from the backgrounds of who's replied, who's not, what the likely guidance would be in terms of our next moves relative to workers' comp insurance and property casualty insurance.
Yep, and so that's still the timeline. We don't see any issues with meeting that currently?
No, they just committed yesterday in terms of making a timeline, and they confirmed this morning they can get out with what they've got. We're waiting on feedback from one organization that's is one of the privates.
Okay.
They'll speak to the whole realm of who they've contacted and worked with, who's responded, and then move into discussions of recommendation points and things like that.
While we're on that,
Yeah.
sorry, on the insurance piece, have you looked at, or are you not this far? Obviously, we're talking about the center-based program, and we don't know the trajectory of that yet, but have you included that in some of these insurance quotes to see what kind of effect that would have on our coverage?
They're aware that we're involved with it. We already have an in-house center program. So from the concept of being involved, it's already involved. Their big focus really is on the number of total students in the district as one element, and that
Okay.
set of programs is going to have a much smaller from a student head count point of view than anything else we got already operating in the district.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
Briefly touched on sinking fund millage, certainly the votes today. They had a positive chamber meeting coming out of that. The center application, so there's going to be a presentation coming up November 10th. Pam and Jessica to the ISD. So that's I guess the next step on that discussion. So then we'll see what the ISD has, what they bring to the table, and we can have those discussions afterwards. And then we'll touch on it later, but it was mentioned the boiler work at Clear Lake. So I think we'll talk about that later. That was it. Thanks.
Thank you for that. All right, item B, we had the MASB Annual Leadership Conference. And I believe you're speaking to that. Both of you?
Oh, there.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Milligan and I had the pleasure to attend the NASB, the annual leadership conference back a couple 2 weeks ago already. Wow, time flies. It was a fantastic opportunity. Lots of great networking moments. I do just want to point out right off the bat that every room I sat down in, someone asked me, how's Oxford doing? Which is just awesome to just feel that camaraderie across the state. Districts that were, I'd never heard of. They're so tiny and small, yet they were asking how we're doing. So it was really great to have that and feel the camaraderie throughout the whole weekend. That was really great. And you're gonna make me go through every slide. I hope everyone had the opportunity to glance through this before tonight. I don't want to read the slides to you, but just the why we attended. So right off the bat, what I've already mentioned, strengthening the district leadership alignment with our strategic plan, learning best practices from other districts, as well as from those that have had decades and decades of experience serving on boards themselves that then move on to facilitate the instruction there for MASB. So not only from fellow superintendent and board member teams that presented their information, but also from professionals at the MASB level. So it was a really wonderful opportunity there. Fostering partnerships with peer districts, like I mentioned. They love handing out their business cards, so I just wanted to encourage the idea of perhaps business cards for being able to connect with other districts. It was really nice to be able to stay in contact, have that opportunity to see, they also print some of their district information on there. Super helpful little tool there. And continue modeling lifelong learning for our teams and students. We took a fantastic anatomy of an audit class, which was wonderful that we had all of that audit information that we had just reviewed at the board meeting. So as they were going through the example audit, we were able to pull up our actual audit results and follow through and also celebrate that we are right on track with what the professionals there were recommending to see for districts. This is what you want to see ideally. And we were like, way to go team. This is right on track and exactly what they were recommending. I can't say that's how everyone felt in the classroom, but we certainly felt that. So kudos to the team for that. But just having that deeper understanding to go through that complicated material, have the opportunity to sit, ask questions, hear the questions in the room from other concerns that hadn't occurred to us, but also what some of these other terms would mean if we were to see them on any audit report. Some examples from some of those insights through the audit study, instruction and pupil support. So basically looking at the different specific reports, like the district expenditures by function versus by object, which is, super interesting if you love numbers and very confusing if you don't. So it was great to have the opportunity to have that broken down. And then jump in, Tanya.
Yeah,
Missing anything?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
You're just rolling along. I love
love
it. Yeah, this was a presentation we had. It was actually a speaker. So incredible, very motivating. And just talked about innovators' mindset and given our new strategic plan and how we're driving towards innovation, that we want to be reflective on what that mindset looks like. So this could be really helpful as we're developing our portrait of a graduate and we're thinking about what our students want, what we're hoping for them at the end of their DK through 12 journey. But some of the quotes I think that really jumped out at me were the two at the bottom there. As a learning institution, learning is our job. I'm like, yes. And to lead by example, you first have to learn by example. And that's something our leaders did throughout the day today. So I think those are two very powerful statements and takeaways. But in order to encourage a growth mindset, we have to value it and we have to use the language of a growth mindset, which was one of our sessions today that our leaders and our staff attended. So pretty good stuff.
I did want to point out that this particular speaker was so energetic. I feel like there was something for everyone with all of the sessions we attended. And they did a great job of having lots of different styles and, some that you just sit and listen, some that are more interactive. And this particular presentation to the entire group, this wasn't a separate session. This was for the whole, hundreds of people that he's presenting to. And his energy was just through the roof. At what time? Like 8:30 in the morning, which is so impressive, but really great.
All right, we attended the culturally competent leadership, and I think in terms of connecting with other teams of 8, this was a really powerful one. We were able to network with other school districts and talk about what does it mean to be a culturally competent leader. We actually ended the session and they all wanted to get a group picture because we had connected so well in that session. But essentially it just talks about what are some leadership traits that we can lean into so that all students, all staff feel a sense of belonging, and what are some characteristics that we want to emphasize, and make sure everybody feels comfortable having their voice heard. So I thought it was a really powerful session. You want to add to that?
Absolutely. It was I don't know how else to describe it, but very impactful to feel the trust that developed just within that session in the room, where people were emotionally sharing some things that they weren't sure they wanted to raise up. But it was quite a privilege to be part of something that other board members from around the state felt like they wanted to raise up and share. So that was really, really nice to be a part of, and very, very humbling.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about this?
Yes, strong governance practices. So we, this actually, I would say this applied to a couple of the sessions or the clinic sessions that were presented by. One was a superintendent and board president team that presented, and then you attended a separate one that was like the whole board was
and
there.
The superintendent.
And their superintendent presented. So we kind of divided and conquered because there were a couple sessions we wanted to cover that were offered at the same time. And just fantastic to get to see what has worked for other districts, what their suggestions were, why their reasoning behind it, what brought them to that conclusion, and where they came from in the first place, what was their struggle and what was driving them to make any changes. So just having that dialogue, again, with other board members, and they, the classroom atmosphere, I felt like as the weekend went on, people love to offer, if they're, experiencing similar, whether it's issues or they have suggestions that no one else had thought of in the room that they're presenting on. It was really nice to have that collaboration and sharing of ideas.
You want to share the school district up in the UP?
Yes.
The impact on student achievement?
So the session I attended was from the Wolverine School District. I hadn't heard of them before because they're pretty tiny. Tiny but mighty, very impressive. Their transformation from their struggles with not only their staff retention, they had a lot of turnover from staff to superintendents, about 4 superintendents in 6 years. It was just so impressive how not only did they recognize their issues from their board governance issues, turnover there, but it also how it was impacting superintendent consistency, anyone wanting to stay, anyone being able to do their job and manage the district because of what was happening with the board. And from where they made some changes, and the superintendent that they were able to get and started there then was empowered by the new board president, and just the trajectory that they have then taken since he started in 2020 to then where their achievement score, what did I say? Their achievement in terms of, I took my bookmark out. What they were looking at for their student, here it is, their test scores, rebuilding a district, that's what it's called. 34% teacher retention rate. That was in 2020. And from there, their board started taking MASB courses, and they've also used another smaller group called MLI. I don't know if you guys have looked at MLI. they're out of Genesee ISD, for their courses, because they also have some school board training courses, but they were saying the president's support of the superintendent was integral to all the actions that they were able to take to amplify their positive moments and also improve their culture across the district, so much so that by this past July of 2025, they earned the top performing school in the state. Like, to go from 5 years of having, and then they've also improved to 95% teacher retention, to go from 34% to 95 in 5 years is just so impressive, like beyond over the top. So just them sharing their perspective and how from what they were struggling with to where they went, and how empowering that was to just hear that success story was awesome.
It's really, really powerful. And just other mechanisms that they use to enhance culture, to enhance collaboration. Many of them talked about working sessions, study sessions, business meetings versus committee of the whole. And there's just there's a vast array of different ways to do it. There's not just one way. And so figuring out what's best for your community, which we've been kind of trying some new things out. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, this was a really fun idea, and I think that I'm going to do this. They talked about how important it is to showcase our students and have student performances and presentations, and I thought that's amazing. So for example, on Saturday for our parent university, we had our jazz band play, and that was an amazing way to showcase the talents of our students. So I think that we can definitely leverage that during our board meetings and have different groups of students come and perform or present. I think that would be really powerful. Talked about networking already. There was the former mayor of Saginaw is now on their school board, Joyce. How old did she say she was? 70, like 76, 77.
Yeah.
Ooh, she was a powerhouse. She was amazing. And it's just so motivational, just talking to different people and understanding their why of why they're on the board, why they do what they do. It was just really powerful. Let's see. Strategic alignment. How it supports our strategic plan. We could point to just about everything that we did in alignment with a strategic plan. It was incredible. And some overall key takeaways. So, next step, applying the lessons learned to advance district improvement and strategic alignment. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, it was a fantastic learning opportunity, and hope to drag the rest of you with us and future opportunities wherever they're at. Actually, the next one
Lansing.
is in sunny Lansing.
Well, it's actually nice that it's closer.
It is.
And, you know, I was talking with Amanda about this. So there's CBA options, but then there's also just the 2 days of learning. I think those were probably the most powerful. Those clinic sessions that we went to, and teams of 8 presenting and ideas and brainstorming. So it would be that Friday and Saturday only, which I think could be really powerful for us to go. I was just really impressed, the teams of 8, like Clarkston, his superintendent, and had their whole board there learning together. And actually, Joyce was the one that said the most powerful thing for her team was learning together. That's what helped them the most. So, but I also want to emphasize, you know, that we do appreciate the privilege of attending. We know it is a privilege. And it was an extremely powerful learning opportunity that definitely shapes our thinking and our practices, and I look forward to future opportunities with my team of 8. Questions?
What's the dates for Lansing?
It's early, like the first weekend in May. I'll send it out as soon as we have it. They didn't have everything solidified. But it's great. It was really good. Okay, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you both for that, and thank you for going and bringing back all of that wonderful information. With that said, we do have a motion, if anybody would like to start that off. For travel expenses, James, thank you.
I move to approve the travel expenses for trustee Atchison in the amount of $79.
Support? Sarah Beth, thank you. Discussion. I did just want to note that you will probably have noticed that the receipt amounts are different than the reimbursement amount, and that's because the district does not pay sales tax, and there is a daily cap. So just in case anybody was wondering why the amounts were different, that's why. So, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again. Moving into our board discussion, along those same lines, Tanya and I participated in a webinar hosted by HYA, actually. That was the firm that helped us find our superintendent during our search. It was called Collaborative Leadership and Board Superintendent Effectiveness. I did send you all the slide deck from that and my main takeaways and things from the webinar. It was great. It was free, so that's always a bonus. And it's interesting to note that a lot of the same themes ended up popping up that you lifted up, is that we also found in the webinar. Something I found personally very interesting was the effect that turnover has on stability within districts as far as superintendents and boards, and how across the country right now it's about a 50% turnover rate on board members, and the attrition rate of superintendent has reached close to 40%, which they do project that this is probably the leveling off period, and that hopefully will be going down. Obviously, COVID and all of the things that have happened across the country have contributed to that. But they really echoed that having a good system in place for that overcomes a lot of the downfalls from that attrition rate and turnover, and that when boards that build processes for open communication, shared accountability, and reflective discussion after having challenges, that tends to sustain trust long term, which is a pretty big factor in successful and non-successful boards and leadership teams. So that was very interesting. They really reminded us that respectful disagreement is very healthy, but disrespect in general erodes credibility and public trust. So every board, ours included, is going to face hard topics, strong opinions, all of it, which is, it's normal, but what defines a strong board is how we manage those moments by staying civil, listening fully, avoiding personal comments or interruptions. And one thing that she said that I resounded with me was focus on policy, not people. And so I think that was just an interesting angle to look at in how, and with our governance team and some of the structures that we've put into place to really withstand long past our time here, that really helps to create that trust not only within our community, within our staff, amongst each other. So that was an interesting one, and if you had any questions on that, Tanya and I, did I miss anything that you found?
I think the only other thing I'd like to lift up is that they talked about the significance of channels of communication and ensuring that there are robust channels of communication, that silence is a problem, that if you can't talk things out, it's really challenging to work as a team. And so whatever communication systems you have in place, really enhance them, figure out what works, what doesn't work. But the most important thing is to have dialogue around concerns or challenges and, help the team move forward. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a perfect segue into our next topic of our next workshop. We had David come in and facilitate with us, which really was a great opportunity to gain the foundational understanding of the archetypes and how we could use that together as a board. And 3 hours just didn't seem like enough when we were talking about all of that. It was very interesting, but we did not have the chance for dialogue at that point. So as I've discussed one-on-one with many of you, I think that it would be very helpful if we moved on to the second step of this and scheduled another workshop for January with David to really dive deeper into how we can use these archetypes to enhance our board and our communication and what we are struggling with. And so with that said, I would like to see, one, your thoughts or opinions on the second session, but then also your availability. Tanya had sent out, it was just yesterday, but the availability for January, and it looks like the 23rd and the 31st are our best two options that so far seem to make everyone satisfied. So if you could all take a moment to also look at your calendars and let us know if either of those dates are a hard no for anybody.
It's from 9 to noon.
Yep, 9 to noon. Both Fridays. Did we have to reschedule a committee meeting for that?
For both of them.
For both of them we would? Yeah.
Yeah, we'd
okay.
have to shift it.
I know, policy is early in the month, so. So, thoughts on the workshop? Following through with the second round, it would be the similar structure where he would call everybody and do a one-on-one phone meeting prior and then travel in and do our 3-hour workshop. So cost would be the same. It's relatively low. I know that's also something that has come up a few times, and personally I think it's really important that we do maintain fiscal responsibility, but at the same time it is of the utmost importance that we continue as a board with professional development, and it's very rare that you find something free, and in the grand scheme of things, David is at or below a typical workshop with MASB to come in here. So I think that covers those bases as well.
Yeah. I mean,
23rd,
just
31st?
I mean, either one works for me. I already filled out the availability.
Okay.
The earlier dates won't work, the two earlier ones. Yeah, but as we talked about, I think we barely scratched the surface on it, but there was a lot of information. I understand. I enjoyed it. I think I'm chomping at the bit to like get in deeper and have some good conversation across the board table as well. And so yeah, I agree that this would be the good next step, I guess.
So James
Thank
says
you.
either works.
Okay.
Should be fine.
Are you
And
good on
it's
either,
gonna be
Mike?
Game time if something changes in January, but either one of those dates should work for me.
Shane?
One more time, what were the dates?
23rd and 31st, 9 a.m. to noon.
We're talking January.
Correct.
31st is a Saturday.
So
31st is a
30th
Saturday?
Fridays.
Uh-oh, was that supposed to be the 30th then?
Okay, so it's 30th.
Yeah. Either will work.
It's a
30th,
Friday.
okay.
They're both Fridays.
Yeah.
As of right now, both of mine are.
Either one should work.
Okay. Where does our second board meeting, our first one's on the 13th, right? I don't have it up right now. So where does our second board meeting land? Because 27th, thank you.
27th.
So how about the 23rd?
23rd.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, Tanya and I will reach out to David and get the 23rd, 9 a.m. to noon scheduled. If anybody has a conflict in the meantime, please bring it to our attention immediately. I'd really, really like to have all of us there. Any additional thoughts, questions on the next workshop?
I mean, I would agree with Mike that having the groundwork set, I am also intrigued on the application of it, right? And having all of us there to work through that should definitely be an outcome directive for the January meeting.
Is there another like level of the assessment, or is it just the 1 hour speed dating Zoom with? That's what I kind of felt it was with
I
with
love
David.
that you referred it to as speed dating, because that is how I felt. That's so funny. So essentially, if you remember when we did it the first time, he specifically asked all of us not to bring in, and he didn't want any bias. And so we weren't to talk about any specific issues. He was just getting to know us individually based on the archetypes. Now that he sees where we're at as a board, he sees everybody as individual. This will be more of an opportunity for us to talk about those things with him. Perhaps he could help give you some tips before the next session of, have you thought about approaching it from this angle, knowing that this person is coming from the warrior archetype? Or so he would really get into those interpersonal dynamics a little bit more.
Okay.
And then the goal would be that we all sit down and bring out any barriers, things that we think would help improve communication, trust, transparency, all of the issues that our board and every other one surrounding typically face. So
Good.
does that help answer?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Great. Well then, it is a date on January 23rd, everybody. Moving into item 7, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Good evening. Just a quick update to Treasurer Whitney's observations on the 31AA funding. There has been communication relating to the Michigan legislature from it's expected to amend the section itself, 31AA, the language with the intent to clarify certain definitions that are in it and address some of the aspects around the waiver of privilege, including the attorney-client privilege piece. So that's a wait and see what happens one, but regardless of the outcome there, we do intend to accept funding in the district. And just to kind of piggyback on your earlier report. That said, though, in your packets, you should see a document that looks like this. It's the quarterly financial report. I'm going to walk through what's in it and the intent of why we're adding it. Because historically, you've seen reports that are budget amendment reports. So this is kind of the flip side of the coin of a snapshot of where we're actually at from an existing operating perspective. So in the actual format itself, and this is the inaugural document, so it's like just like the website data information piece, it's to a living document. So it'll be, when we see ways to improve it, clarify it, it'll be done and as we go forward. So it's comprised of, the first page is basically an executive summary. It's set up, and there's the last page that breaks out when we're going to publish them for the board reporting. First page related to an executive summary, then there's some national, state, economic, and state aid related information embedded in it. Some revenue expenditure details around the different operating funds, and when I say operating funds, I mean the program operation funds that contain our general fund, our child care fund, our food service funds, and our school activity funds. There is some budget-only information related to our debt service and our capital project funds. That is more of a dependent upon what happens in the course of the year, so there's kind of a more of a focus on the big operating funds as opposed to the specific managing pieces like a debt service fund is. Also in there you will find current budget development schedules at the back page. There's the current budget development calendar for the year we're in, and the result of that calendar produces the adopted budget you'll be looking at come June. And then there's also a schedule that just previously mentioned that shows when the next reports will come out. So we refer to these as quarterly reports. You'll see three during the course of the year. We don't do a fourth because the reality is we're working on the financial audit at that point. Some additional information schedules that are also contained in there: cash and investment position, which is a snapshot in time where our bank holdings and investment pieces are. Relative in this case, it's in September. Some revenue expenditure schedules that are related to the general fund, community service fund, and food service fund that actually provide the underlying numbers for the earlier pages of write-up. and then a cash disbursement detail, and some economic reports. So typically, when we're coming up and talking to the board, whenever these reports get filed with the board, it's not a great presentation, it's more about we'll raise, whoever was myself and Courtney, will raise a set of highlights and what's in the reports. For example, revenues recognized as of the end of September was $13,118,000, which is about 12% of the total budget, expenditure budget, or excuse me, revenue budget. And then expenditures recognized in the same time frame of $26,704,000, which is about just under 25% of the expenditure budget. That's a good example of, at the front of every school year, there's always a cash drag because of the way the state funds districts. And kind of piggybacking a little bit on the fund balance conversation from the finance subcommittee, that's why districts maintain a focus on fund balance from a working capital perspective, because every district has its own time of year that are the biggest drawdowns in terms of available cash coming in versus what's going out. And then from an additional piece on there too, the cash position, again, I just mentioned in terms of what's at the end of September. So the document itself is really for an informational piece to give a snapshot to the board at that time frame. So kind of the offset, or kind of goes along with, as I said, with any budget reports that come through. Normally, any questions anytime that are relevant to those reports, we'd be happy to field. I know it's new. If something comes up, please feel free to email via Tanya. We're more than happy to clarify. The way that school districts are funded, the timeframes in which we expend is strange. So I'm sure that'll raise some questions in terms of when you take a minute to look at it. Hopefully there's some other information that kind of helps build the environment of what we're operating in. That's why there's some more of the economics embedded in that report as well. Any questions? It's just that good, right?
As always.
So good, John.
Would you like me to move on to the bid information?
Yes, please.
So we do have, in your packet too for first reading, another bid for Clear Lake, boiler bid for Clear Lake. August, we were speaking with the board and you approved a boiler there. They've got two boilers, one had failed, the one that was failed was replaced already. The plan was to limp the existing one into next year's time frame and replace it then. Through the replacement process of the first one, we concluded that we don't want to take the chance of trying to limp it through and then in January be back in front of you when it's 20 degrees outside. So what's in front of you is it's from the same provider, it's the same boiler. The difference is that this installment also includes an additional pump that's required and a new set of controller piece for this, so the two boilers will communicate better, which was not included in the first one. Those were already used by the existing ones that are currently being used. So from a cost perspective, it's $58,337.50 for the boiler, the pump, the controller, and the install, and them into the building, and to coordinate also well with the other new existing boiler. Pricing's based on same format as the last meeting in August. It's based on cooperative pricing for the underlying boiler piece. And let me see what I'm missing. We are compliant with state law and policy, board policy 3301. So we are asking, and again, this is first reading, we are asking of the board for the November 18th board meeting to authorize administration to execute a contract with Johnson & Wood LLC for $58,337.50 and to further authorize an additional $5,800 for contingency purposes if it's needed. Ideally, it's not going to be needed, but just like when we put in the first one, because it's older equipment, you just don't know till you're in there. Any questions?
Question? Shane?
Just real quick, sorry, John. I'm looking at the document you uploaded. I heard you say 58,000, but the sheet I'm looking at says 56,868. I just don't know if I'm missing something or if I'm looking at the wrong document.
So the First page.
First Johnson and Wood.
And Johnson near the 58,337. So there's a couple also accompanying quotes for other accompanying bids that were just related to boilers. That pricing's included here. Are you looking at that one?
Okay,
Yeah, I think
sorry.
he was at the bottom.
Yeah, I went all the way to the bottom, but I guess the 56,000, that one wasn't including something? Is that why it's
Yeah,
$2,000
the other
less?
two quotes were just speaking to the boiler. The Johnson and Wood was the boiler plus the other two pieces, all packaged installed. So from a pricing point of view, the Johnson and Wood product is better pricing, plus there's gonna be additional pieces added in.
Okay,
In lieu of just bringing the boiler piece, and then because of the other piece would fall under the actual bid recs, it's better to be, to me, more transparent to show the whole package that we're asking for this.
right, okay. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Anyone else?
And this again is first readings.
Yep, we'll make a decision at our next board meeting. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to send those in. Yeah, sure.
John, sorry, one other question. Just, what if we say no? What's the downside?
Throw the dice and see if we make it through the next year.
So the brand new one that we just had installed in August, we're worried if we don't have a backup that it may go
Yeah,
bad?
The goal of these two are, it's a variant of what's known as lead lag. So ideally, in the new structure, and Tim, check me if I'm wrong on this in terms of my remembrance on it. Been a long day. Boiler 1 runs for 10 hours, boiler 2 runs for 10 hours, so they trade off. Historically, lots of districts set them up so boiler 1 would be the primary, and then if it needed a boost to get the heat up, then boiler 2 would kick on. So from a model point of view, we're trying to balance them to maximize useful life on the both pieces.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
What's that?
I think so. I know you touched on it in the beginning. I did just want to say briefly about 31 AA funding. Tanya and I have been watching very closely. She's been keeping me updated with all of the new changes as far as right into trick-or-treating time she was calling me. It is changing. They're going back and forth a bit. It's back in the legislators' hands, from what I understand, to provide additional clarification. I just wanted to put it out there and let you all know. We don't have to have a resolution at this point. Of course, they can change. The board doesn't have to have a resolution for the district to accept the funding in, trade-off for accepting their conditions. And the plan is absolutely that the district will be accepting. We'll see what that date ends up being. It was mid-November. Now it looks like it could be end of November. And whether the board will actually need to make a formal resolution or not is also TBD. We will see how that pans out. But I know Shane had mentioned that he's heard some things in the community, and I just wanted to be very clear that not a single board member or Tanya have expressed a bit of opposition to this. So just letting you all know, and of course our community, that the intended track is absolutely to agree with this and accept the funding with the conditions, however they may flesh out. So, yeah, of course. Thank you, John. Moving into unscheduled public comment. Do we have any this evening? No? Okay. Item 9, our scheduled activities. Our next meeting will be out at Leonard, and we do have the earlier start time because we're doing the community of the whole. Stay tuned for more information on that. That'll be very exciting. And then, of course, our Thanksgiving recess, our Wildcat Remembrance Day on the 30th, moving into our next board meeting. Any administrative clarification, Dr. Milligan? No? Okay. Final board comments. No, seeing none. All right, it is 8:24. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.